Alright, back with another episode. What we've got here is a 3D painting. So you could create this for your living room, put a frame around it for an interesting conversation piece. Or obviously you could create this for the backing of a reptile terrarium, as you see here. You want to check out the last video I did using a hot wire. Created a hide. I did not create a hide for this one, but check out the last one where I did. This one is based entirely on a two-dimensional painting that I did for the series Hawk and the Dragon. Check that out. So let's get started. You want to use one of these dust masks with every project you do using grout or polystyrene or other material. I've got my entire setup close to an open window for adequate ventilation. Going to be using two hot wires from the hot wire foam factory. Check them out. And what I'm doing here is measuring out on polystyrene for the back of that aquarium. And what I'm going to do is measure out a little bit smaller in all directions for that backing, just so you've got some give. Using the hot wire, gonna cut away polystyrene. The main benefit to these hot wires is, or at least one of the main benefits, is there's no mess when you cut. Using a knife in the past, I would have this enormous mess of styrofoam particles everywhere. So as you see, it's got a little bit of a give. It's a little bit too small, and this is what you want because it's going to grow a little bit in size when you put the coatings on. So what I'm going to do is draw out as best I can a little bit of a guide, a replica of that painting I did. And I'm going to measure out some of the pieces that I want to protrude and be three-dimensional. So this is basically based on the mittens of Utah. Do a search for that on the internet. So I've got that first piece that is essentially the length of that base of the first red rock structure. And I'm going to create a whole bunch of pieces that are a little bit smaller than that, because it's got this sort of trapezoid triangular base that gets bigger. A lot of people, they leave emails or comments. They're wanting alternative products to use. In this case, I did not get to use this. I glued the entire project together before these new products arrived. But this is a glue specifically designed for foam, so I would definitely check that out. I'll be introducing other products, alternative products, later in the video. So I've got all those pieces that are trying to replicate the size of that first, rock structure that I'm going to have three-dimensional. And I'm going to put glue just in the center of these pieces. Now obviously you could get some much thicker EPS foam and you wouldn't have as much of, this issue. I'm going to use some leftover small insulation polystyrene pieces. So I'm putting glue just in the center because I know using that hot wire I'm not going to go through the center of these protruding pieces. So I've got the shape of that second area that's going to be 3D. I'm going to trace around it and create a whole bunch pieces like this. I'm going to put glue again just in the center of these pieces. The wire will not be going through the center. So you really just need enough glue to hold the thing together enough to the point where you can get to the stage where you're applying coats. I'm going to go ahead and glue this on the backing. I did not glue the other structure to the back piece yet. carve out some clouds, three-dimensional clouds. So I think there's like 3 or 4 three-dimensional clouds. The other clouds that are like further back in space, I left two-dimensional. So creating some beveling shape to the cloud there. I'm going to go ahead and glue those in. Now here's the hot wire, the freehand sculpting tool. Obviously this is off, or that would be quite painful. I'm going to bend this into a shape that I want and start sculpting on that main piece. As you can see, I did not glue it. I wanted the versatility of being able to, push it around and get to different angles. So again, referring to the painting that I'm basing this off of. And of course, I've got the little bit of a crude guide there on the back, of the original polystyrene sheet. So cutting through this foam, very easy, and again, there's very little mess. You do have the pieces that you cut off, but it's nothing like the mess that I used to go through with an ordinary knife that you would be cutting through this stuff. Both ways work, but this is considerably faster, easier. Cut out that piece that's, if you've ever seen pictures, it's got this little divot, some wind erosion. What I've got here, the freehand tool shaped a couple of different tools, one for like fine detail, one for more of a subtle effect, so that you can go from this, which is like, obviously more fine detail, to the other shape. You don't have to turn the wire off and rebend it. So you've got this sort of two-in-one tool you can quickly go through and add different types of detail. So working on the second structure, just carving away at it. And you can get this to the point where you can add quite a bit of fine detail with those hot wires. Still using that variation that I talked about earlier, where you've got the 2 different styles. So this is fairly close. I'm going to still have to glue that main piece onto the back. And I'm going to make sure that I can still fit this into the 10-gallon aquarium. Now here again are some more alternative products. Usually I use the grout, mixed with water. You've got foam coat, again, stuff from the hot wire foam factory. And what you want to do, you've also got grit. This you want to apply if you're trying to create texture. It'll also strengthen the structure. And this is a little dollar store measuring kit. What you want to do with this stuff is measure 3 parts foam coat to 1 part liquid. In this case, let's just pretend that's a cup. It was a half a cup of water, half a cup of Boost. That's just sort of a fortifying, strengthening agent to the foam coat. Mix that together and then put 3 parts to the 1 part, 3 parts of foam coat. Mix that together, and what I found is to try to get a similar consistency as to what I'm used to working with grout, I had to add quite a bit more water. So you'll just have to experiment if you use these products. There's me adding more water. Just trying to get to a similar consistency to what I worked with. So based on that, you do have to apply more than 1 coat, but even though I did thin this out with water, the other thing, or the other email that I'll get or comment with these videos, is that the first layer of grout tends to flake off, or it's brittle, or it will crack. With the foam coat, I did not experience that. With the first coat, it was quite strong. The other thing, it had quite a bit of give to it, whereas the grout, you'd push on it and it would be quite brittle. This stuff had quite a bit of give. It was very forgiving if you accidentally bumped into it. So, got the back section here. Gonna apply a couple layers. Putting on the second coat. You'll just have to judge for your own project as to how thin. It's really, if you want to retain the detail, you're going to have to thin it out with a little bit more water and apply more layers. You're obviously getting into the painting stage. Tried to do a bit of a grayscale, or I guess in this case color scale, with the sky, again trying to mimic that painting, where it's very light. It's a lighter blue, at least on the bottom, and gets darker towards the top. Sort of see it there. The video is not really coming through as well as how it is. Using a red oxide there for the actual red rock 3D sections. And if you look at any picture, especially of like a Red Rock Canyon scene, the formations that are further in the distance, they always seem to be this. There's the painting, by the way. You can see towards the back, the structures that are further in the distance, they're more grayed out, they're faint, there's not as much detail. And they kind of look like this grayed out lavender. So that's the color I'm using here to try to convey that distance. They're at least not going to be the same color and have the same detail as the foreground. So trying to create more of the landscape, some color variation, trying to clean up the clouds. They got a little messed up when I was putting the blue on there. And creating some other clouds. These are clouds that are further out, into the distance, so they don't have as much detail. They're not as white, and they're not as big. Tried to fluff up the clouds a little bit, sort of see there towards the top. And I'm going to try to work on the actual 3D structures. Going to use this is sort of a light orange. It's basically red oxide with beige mixed with white, maybe a few other colors in there, just trying to create some highlights and bring out the texture. You can also go back in and use dark brown or red oxide mixed with black in this case, just to bring out the detail, make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. Also going to try to clear up or clean up those edges. You got these white edges. I'm just going to use a dark blue where the sky hits and a red oxide where the landscape hits. Here's another alternative product. You can use this with the foam coat. In this case, I'm just going to use it by itself for the sealant. And whatever sealant you use, you want to make sure it says non-toxic on the bottle. If it doesn't, you want to contact the manufacturer and have them tell you, make sure it's actually non-toxic when dry or when cured. So this is another product from the Hotwire Foam Factory. What I'm going to do, you can use this stuff just straight out of the bottle. What I'm going to do is 1 part water to 2 parts bounce, and I'm going to mix this together and put it into a little dollar store water bottle and then use it as a spray. So because I'm thinning this out with just 1 part water, I'm going to use several coats. If you do this, you want to put like 3 to 4 coats on here. Now if you're creating this just because you want a 3D painting to hang in your living room, you don't necessarily need to seal it. It is going to make it last longer, and it's going to make it stronger. So using a brush to work in that sealant and all the little crevices, turning it around, making sure to seal the back of it And there you have it, 3D painting. Again, you can create this with a, well, there's, put a frame around it as sort of a strange conversation piece. We're obviously in an aquarium. Be sure to check out the other video I did with the background aquarium, and the last video I did where I created a mountain range, again using the hot wire, and check out the second channel. Thanks for watching.